we're going to try and unravel what's been called the eternal fabric of Indian civilization. Okay, so let's just jump right in. The question we're asking today is, well, it's a big one. You think about all the empires and cultures that have come and gone. How does one civilization keep it all together, continuously, for more than 5,000 years? I mean, what's the secret sauce here? Well, the answer we're going to explore today isn't really about military might or giant monuments, It's something deeper. It's actually woven right into the fabric of the culture itself, this incredibly resilient spiritual foundation that pretty much touches every single part of life. So, to really get this, we've got to start at the very center, at its spiritual core. And it's built on this really fascinating idea: one single source, but with countless different streams flowing out from it. And right at the heart of it all is this key Vedic idea. See, it's not really about one god versus many gods. It's about something else entirely. It's the concept of a single, all-encompassing consciousness, the one eternal, that just shows up in a million different ways. And because of that, life itself is seen as a journey, right? A path to realizing that very divinity that's already inside of us. And this is where you can really see the difference in worldview. The Indian approach is what you'd call synthetic. It's all about weaving things together. The idea is that everything, all of existence, is connected. So, monism and polytheism, they're not seen as opposites. They're just different camera angles on the same ultimate reality. Now, contrast that with a lot of Western thought, which tends to put the material world in one box and the spiritual world in another, often focusing on external progress. This other way of looking at it really flips that, prioritizing that inner journey as the real goal. And get this, these ideas are ancient. We're talking roots that go all the way back to the Indus Valley civilization, more than 5,000 years ago. Then they evolved during the Vedic period, which gave us these core spiritual texts. And later, during the Epic era, they diversified even more with the rise of new ways of thinking like Buddhism and Jainism. So yeah, this isn't something that was just cooked up recently. It's been developing and adapting for literally millennia. Okay, so you might be thinking, that's a nice big philosophy, but how does it actually work in real life? How does it become a practical guide, a kind of blueprint for how to live? Well, the answer comes down to what are known as the four great aims of life, or the Purusharthas. So the bedrock, the absolute foundation for everything, is Dharma. Now, it's easy to just translate this as religion, but it's so much more than that. Think of it as your ethical duty, righteous conduct, the very cosmic law that keeps everything in balance. It's the solid ground you have to build your life on. Next up, we have Artha, and this is the pursuit of wealth, prosperity, material success. And here's the really crucial part. This is not seen as some unspiritual, bad thing. Just the opposite. It's considered a totally valid and important part of a full life, with one big condition. It has to be pursued ethically, within the boundaries of Dharma. Then there's Kama. This is all about desire, pleasure, passion, basically enjoying all the amazing sensory experiences life has to offer. We're talking art, music, food, love, relationships, the whole shebang. This philosophy doesn't say you should suppress these things. It says, hey, desire and pleasure are a natural, healthy part of being human. Embrace them. And that brings us to the fourth and final aim, the ultimate goal of it all, moksha. This is spiritual liberation. It's that moment of realizing the divine unity we mentioned at the start. It's the end of the line, the final destination for the soul's long journey, where you go beyond your individual self. So you see how this all fits together? The really key takeaway here is that it's a totally holistic path. It's not forcing you to choose between being a spiritual person or a worldly person. The blueprint is pretty clear. First, you build that solid ethical foundation with Dharma. Then, you dive into the world, pursue Artha, enjoy Kama. And it's through those very life experiences that you eventually find your way to the ultimate goal, moksha. Now, what's really interesting is how this personal blueprint was kind of scaled up to shape the whole of society. It created a structure that was actually designed to help everyone along on this journey of growth. This structure was organized into what's called the ashramas, or the 4 stages of life. Think of it like this. First, you're a student, just focused on learning and discipline. Then you become a householder. You get a job, start a family, and engage with society. This is where you're really living out your Artha and Kama. Then, as you get older, you move into a retiree stage, kind of withdrawing from the daily grind to reflect. And for some, the final stage is becoming an ascetic, a complete renunciation of worldly things to focus solely on that final goal of moksha. Okay, the source material we're looking at also talks about the Varna system. Now, as it's described in the old Vedic texts, the idea was a framework of social functions. You had your teachers, your warriors, your merchants, and so on. The philosophical goal behind it was to create a harmonious society where everyone could grow spiritually by fulfilling their particular duty. It's also really important to point out that the source makes a clear distinction between this original functional concept and the much more rigid hereditary jati or caste system that it later evolved into. So let's step back a second. When you put all these pieces of the puzzle together, that spiritual core, the four aims of life, the stages of life, the social structure, what you end up with is this great synthesis. It's a culture that became unbelievably resilient because its core design principle was to integrate and absorb, not to reject and fight. And the proof is in the pudding, right? The result is over 5,000 years of uninterrupted civilization. I mean, just let that number sink in. It's absolutely staggering. And it's a testament to just how strong and flexible these core ideas really were. So, if we were to list the key ingredients for this incredible endurance, what would they be? Well, first, you have that spiritual core that gives meaning to everything. Then you have a roadmap for life that is truly holistic. It says yes to both the material and the spiritual. And all of this created a culture with a remarkable capacity for tolerance, an ability to absorb and blend in countless outside influences over the centuries. You know, things like the Bhakti and Sufi movements, just weaving it all into that ever-growing, resilient cultural fabric.
And that really leaves us with a final question to chew on. In our world today, a world that feels like it's all about constant change and disruption, what can we possibly learn from a blueprint for living that has lasted for millennia? A design that's built not on being rigid and brittle, but on being flexible, on finding balance, and on always keeping an eye on that deeper spiritual quest. What lessons are in there for us as we try to build a future that's just as enduring?